The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. This week we have on Gerry Graf. Gerry is the co-founder and chief creative officer at SlapGlobal. Gerry was previously the founder of Barton F. Graf 9000 LLC. Here's what people have said about Gerry. Business Insider named Graf the most creative man in advertising, and Newsweek called him one of the new Don Drapers. Ad Age named Gerry one of the 50 biggest and best thinkers and doers from 20 years of advertising and consumer culture. Facebook appointed Gerry to the Facebook Creative Council, and Forbes named Barton one of the 14 most influential agencies in America. So in this episode, Gerry gets transparent with how long things took him to actually achieve his accumulated success. Let's just say he's won every award in the advertising industry. I don't have all day here to list them all out. He details the process he went through to get his first job, then how we can expedite that process today. He details his process and how many years it took him to land his first great spot, first great ad, then tells us how we can expedite that process as well. Also, he lists out 2 major things it takes to thrive in advertising. So this one is a good one to listen to from start to finish, perhaps a couple of times. And if this information in this episode is not enough for you, Gerry listed out additional resources he recommends just for you. You can find those at Breaking and Entering Pod on Instagram. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Gerry Graf, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing great, Gino. Thanks for having me.
And where are you at? You said you're in Boston visiting?
Yeah, I live in New York City, but I'm up in Boston visiting my family.
Gotcha.
So I'm in my mom's study right now.
Nice. Is that the same house you grew up in?
No.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited to talk with you about advertising. I'm sure you talk about that sometimes in your life because you're the co-founder and chief creative officer at SlapGlobal. Is that correct?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. That's
Nice.
what I was going to say.
Cool. What does that mean? What do you guys do at SlapGlobal? What does it mean to be a co-founder? What does it mean to be a chief creative officer? Give us the rundown of your life.
Well, co-founder is, kind of explicit, I guess. I started, the company with partner Maxi Itzkoff. And we just started a company with no clients and no investors or anything like that. We started during the pandemic, and chief creative officer simply means that nobody above me can tell me what I can do creatively.
Heck yeah. That's what we like.
That's the only reason I ever pushed to be like a creative director or an ECD. I didn't care about the title. I just wanted to minimize the people on top of me.
Gotcha. So does that mean your co-founder was more account focused? Is it more account focused?
No.
What does that look like?
My co-founder is another creative. Before Slap, I had an agency called Barton F. Graf for about 10 years. Before that, I was chief creative officer at Saatchi & Saatchi, New York. And my partner, Maxi, was chief creative officer at Saatchi & Saatchi in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And we became really good friends. And we always talked about doing something together, and it never quite worked out. And then during the pandemic, he called me up and asked me if I wanted, he knew I had just closed my old agency, and he asked me if I wanted to work on a project. And we worked on some stuff for Doritos and came out pretty good, actually very good. And then an old client of mine, Fox Sports, called me up and asked me if I had a crew together. And I said, well, I've got a friend in Argentina. We're doing some stuff, and we did a big project to launch their new sports app. And then Maxie and I just said we were initially just kind of screwing around, but I think we have an agency, and we should start something.
And how many people in those first couple projects, like Fox, how many people were helping you with that?
There was about 5. We had a great planner who is in Madrid, and 2 other creative people working together, and then some uh, who were kind of, I don't know. I guess everybody was freelancing, and then a
Yeah.
freelance producer came in and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was a little over 2 years ago.
Now, I would think I don't know much, but don't you need somebody that's a account specialist in the mix there, or is the creative so good that the accounts come to you?
You need somebody who,
Okay.
who you might need a CEO or president or a head account person or a project manager. You need somebody who can kind of keep a schedule, you know, and let the client know that you know and care about their business as much as you should. Um,
And who is that person for
Lin,
you guys?
Lin, Lindsay Corona is my president uh, since last September.
Okay.
But we had some freelance people. But your instinct is right. You know, I remember mother always used to boast that they don't have account people.
Mm.
You know,
Don't they
and
call them mothers?
they call them mothers, which yeah, is what it is. But I
Yes.
thought it was funny because years ago, they flew me to London to interview for a job there, and nice business class ticket, and I stayed
Nice.
at a nice hotel, and then the next morning I went to Mother for my interview, and the chief creative officer was on vacation. They forgot I was coming.
No way.
And I remember my first thought was, you see, this is why you need account people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what'd you do then? Just
I went sightseeing in London,
free
and
trip.
yeah, free trip. And, he's a good friend of mine now, but he's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can you stay for 2 days? And I'm like, no, I can't really. I got to get back to New York,
Yeah.
and I went home, but free trip, to London.
Yeah. How do you get to that point where you're getting free trips to London?
It's what any creative person in advertising should do is, you know, completely concentrate on making great work, and everything comes after that. You get phone calls with free trips.
There you go.
You
And
know,
they'll call you up.
yeah.
But I wanna go back to Slap here. Um, what does it look like now since you guys started in the pandemic? You had a small team of 5, you have a president now. What's going on? What does the agency look like? Who are your clients? What's the work you're producing looking like?
We've got 23 full timers now,
Nice.
um, split mostly between New York and Buenos Aires, with a few in Madrid as well. And it's your kind of core team that I think you need nowadays. We have creative people. I don't really call them account people. They're more business people. They know the business of advertising. They know the business of our clients, and they know the business of an agency, such as how to make money for your ideas, which is very important skill when you own your own company, is to know how to make money off of what you make. And we have some incredible brand planners, media planners, some data specialists who help us, in the social and digital world. Our clients we do a lot of stuff with the snacks division of PepsiCo. We've done incredible work for Doritos, both in the States and globally. Um, just finished a global project for Lay's potato chips that's coming out that really excited about. Done projects for Samsung. We've done projects for Under Armour, Fox Sports, like I mentioned before. It's mostly project work this time around, but
Yep.
it's been great.
What's the vision? What makes you guys different?
Um, Well, it's the company run the two founders, myself and Maxie, are two creative people. So we're completely dedicated to creative thought. I think one thing that makes us different is when we were being interviewed when we opened by Ad Age, um, telling Anne Christine Diaz,
Mhm.
she's a McCann now, but she's an
Yeah.
incredible person and journalist. Um, that Maxie and I believe that creativity shouldn't just be applied to marketing and communications. Creativity should be applied to every part of the business. And Anne called us a business accelerator through creativity. And
Ah,
and I asked her if I could take that and put it like really big right on the top of our website. So we are involved with our clients, not just creating brand strategies and brand campaigns and marketing campaigns, but we get into product development, package design. I've even written an HR manual for a client on hiring practices based on the strategy involved.
oh, cool. And you're obviously independent, and you've won
Yep.
Independent Agency of the Year in 2021 and 2022. Is that by the Effie Awards?
By the Effies for effectiveness.
People
Uh,
love that. People love that award show.
I think it might be the only one that matters,
What
The
makes that for the I know award shows, I'm submitting them all the time
yeah,
for my job. But tell the listeners what makes the Effie different.
the Effies is based on the effectiveness of your idea, based on various kind of benchmarks, sales, kind of a rise, how your brand awareness is increasing, just a couple of different things.
Yeah.
So, you know, I I I I will work nonstop for like 2 straight days to come up with an idea. I love creating new ideas. And when you sell them to clients and you get to go make them, that's fantastic. But when they actually run and sales go up, guess what? They call you up and they ask you to do it again.
Absolutely.
So
Now
that's why the FEs and effectiveness is great. You know? And
yeah,
it also
well,
proves my point that we all know that the world is just covered in just, I don't know, crud, just horrible, horrible, horrible marketing. But I've always believed, and I've based my entire career off of great ideas sell the most stuff. And it's been true.
this can open the doors to a discussion between, like, there's creative ads that get awarded for creativity but don't sell as much, or they're not effective. There's schools of thought on, like, how do you judge good creative work? So are you arguing that good advertising in the end will sell? Is that one of the key things that it has to sell or be effective?
Uh, the most effective advertising are the best ideas. That's what I believe in. Yeah.
Gotcha. What do you think about the Moldy Whopper then?
The moldy Whopper. The guys who made it, I know them. They're some of the most creative people in the world.
Mhm.
I don't know what the effectiveness of it was. At least it was bold and got noticed. That's step number
Yep.
one
Yeah.
in great advertising is to get awareness. It's actually not that hard to get noticed. I don't think,
Ah,
you can do a lot of things to get noticed, but if you do get noticed, creating advertising, you can't waste that moment. You have someone's attention for seconds or minutes or whatever, and you have to, give them some kind of message and get them to act in a certain way, either feel better about the brand you're doing or click and buy or drive and buy or whatever. So, um, Moldy Whopper got awareness. I don't know what the effectiveness of it
sure.
was.
Yep. Back to Slap. Are you guys looking for interns or anything like that at all? Any
Always
junior
looking for
talent?
always looking for interns. And always looking for people with a fresh point of view. You know,
Gotcha.
I see a lot of I still call them books. I see a lot of
Yeah.
portfolios and stuff like that. Um, and I can almost always figure out Well, first, I can usually figure out what your strategy was if you have a strategy. But even if you don't have a strategy on an interesting idea, I can usually figure out and backtrack you and figure out how you got there, you know? And the people I like the most are when I can't figure that out. I'm like, just people who just think completely different. And I just want to talk to them and learn how did you get to this place, you know?
Absolutely. And and do you notice, like, for those people that do stump you, are they usually at portfolio schools? Are they brand new to this stuff? Like, what are their backgrounds usually, the people that stump you?
Um, they've usually had some kind of education, marketing or advertising education. A lot from portfolio schools. I never went to a portfolio school. I kind of figured it out on my own. But these days, it helps to not only um, be incredibly creative. Like I've seen like in someone's Instagram page and just be blown away and just wanted to meet them because it was great. But people who can come up with great ideas that are attached to a selling idea, because that's what we do. It's at the end of the day, we can talk about creative all the time, but I'm here to sell a bag of chips, and I don't forget that.
Gotcha. I wanna get into your background now. So you mentioned here that you didn't go to a portfolio school. So let's
Yeah.
kick it back and figure out how you got to where you're at today. What was that moment you said you wanna create ads for a living?
Um, well, I'll take it back maybe a year or two before that. The first time I thought I was a creative person, because I never, I'm a copywriter by trade. And that's how I came up in the business. But I never thought of myself as a writer. Um, in high school, I only read the books that I was supposed to read, and only sometimes. Um, but I went to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame doesn't have frats. Their dorms are more like frats. So
Yeah.
once you're in a dorm, you're there for 4 years. They make it
What
hard.
dorm were you in?
Keenan Hall.
I have a friend that goes or went to Notre Dame. I'll have to Keenan
Ask
Hall? I've heard
Keenan
of
Hall.
still around?
Yep, and ask him about the Keenan Review,
Okay.
because I didn't know anything about Keenan Hall except for it was across the quad from the dining hall, and that looked like a good place to be. But it just so happens that Keenan at Notre Dame, when I was there, still, I think it was like the creative hall, you
Ah,
know,
the
and
artsy.
they not artsy, not really artsy, but they put on every year a comedy review, a 3 night, always sold out show at the main auditorium at Notre Dame. It was basically a Saturday Night Live of Notre Dame, and I came home late one night and there were these guys sitting in the hallway. It was like a Wednesday, and they were writing for the review, and I didn't know what that meant. And we were talking at Notre Dame. All the dorms either have a priest, a brother, or a nun in your dorm, and we had a brother. And I always thought we got shortchanged getting a brother, not a full-fledged priest.
Right,
And
right.
and I said that, and they're like, "Well, why don't you think a brother's as good as a priest?" And I said, "I think maybe a brother is just a guy who wanted to be a priest, but he failed Latin or something like that." And I'm from Boston. I'm just a wise ass. I wasn't trying to make a joke. And somebody gave me a pencil and a piece of paper, said, "Write that down. That's a joke for the review." And
Absolutely.
that's how I became a writer, you know? Um,
And the show you wrote for that skit and how to go over? People laughing?
it was great. We were
Didn't
writing
bomb?
joke. No, it did not bomb. In fact, we wrote some other jokes making fun of the Notre Dame football team, and the um, the field goal kicker was in the audience. I remember he gave us the finger,
Oh, yeah. Big time.
and and I'm that's when I learned the power of writing. I'm like, I'm this little nerdy geek, and this guy that starts on the Notre Dame football team. I just wrote something, and I pissed him off so much he gave us the finger. And I also realized I was pretty smart, because if you're going to piss off a Notre Dame football player, probably pick the kicker, right?
Exactly.
It's not going to do that much damage to you. So I loved writing, and I graduated. I had a bunch of, I didn't know what I wanted to do. but the next 3 years, I'd stay up all night just writing skits during, January, February, and March when the show was being made. And I loved it. And I wanted to do something with writing. I moved to LA for like 6 months after school and tried to get into television writing. And that was just a complete failure. And I moved back
Props
to,
for you to get out there though and try
yeah,
and chase. Why not?
give it a try, and it
Mhm.
failed completely. And I moved back to Boston, and I had a good friend I went to high school with, and she went to Boston University, which is a great communication school.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. And I was talking to her, and she's like, "You ever think of advertising?" And I didn't know what advertising was. And she told me about it, and she gave me a copy of Adweek. And
Yep.
she told me about this award show called The One Show,
Mhm.
you know, and I started looking at those awards, and it looked like a blast, and I'm like, "Oh, I can do this." And it looked easier to get into than Hollywood.
Yeah, that's fair. Um,
So yeah, so that's what
Remind
it's
me,
about.
what'd you study at Notre Dame?
I started pre-med,
Mm.
and then that didn't work out, and I went to psychology, and I was told I'd have to take a fifth year, and A, I didn't have enough money for a fifth year, and B, I wasn't going to be stuck in South Bend for 5 years.
Right.
So I got out of psychology, and they're like, "Well, you have 2 years to get a 4-year degree. All you can really do is one of the business degrees." So I picked marketing.
Okay.
But that was just pure coincidence because I actually went back to speak at Notre Dame a couple of years ago because they found out I was, pretty good at advertising, and I had a marketing degree from there. My whole speech was about there's nothing in any class that I took here that has anything to do with what I do today in advertising.
How'd they like that?
Yeah, the students liked it. They
Yeah.
kind of cheered, but I don't even think they gave me like my little pen gift at the end of my.
No.
No, no, they kept the pen.
Are they not calling you back either?
No, I didn't get a return.
Uh, That's good.
But I did
Well, it
praise I praised the review. So
well, yeah. I mean, and we hear that a lot, and unfortunately, even in advertising undergrad education, that's kind of the case too sometimes.
yeah, so bouncing around actually pre-med psychology, marketing, and it actually helps for advertising because you're constantly bouncing around. You have to get fully caught up to speed with like, the retail world of Little Caesars pizza, and then you have to be totally immersed in the Helsinki world of mobile gaming, and then you have to be, next year you're getting deep involved in a project for climate change that you're doing. So
Hey, Jerry, you just unlocked a really good like narrative structure for interviews for these people that maybe have bounced around jobs or majors or they weren't in one place at a long time. That's a really good like proof point there that you could just be like, yeah, well, you have to do that in advertising, and that's why it would be
yeah,
good at an agency. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
just pay attention wherever you are. You never know when it's gonna come in handy. So I was pre-med, then psychology, and then marketing, and then when I moved out to LA, I worked for a rat exterminator to make money while I tried to get into advertising. And then when I moved back to Boston, I got a job as a stockbroker because it's Boston, and I went to Notre Dame. So that's what you did. You know, and then I wasn't good at that, and I was trying to get into advertising, and then a couple of years down the road, I'm pitching Tomcat, rodent poison, and I know more about killing rats than the people at Tomcat, you know? And then, Jeff Goodby and Rich Silverstein asked me if I want to pitch E-Trade. And I start talking about, margin calls and put and call options.
Yeah, you had that experience.
I had that experience. Yeah.
So you went there, you went fast there, and I'm pretty slow. So, um, so from that one show book, the annuals, you saw that from your friend that went to Boston College, and you said this is interesting. It's probably easier than getting into Hollywood. What was your next step from there?
Next step was my girlfriend, who's now my wife, told me she was moving back to Los Angeles because she got a job at a gallery there. So I moved back to LA, but I was kind of on the advertising track. So I worked as a broker from 5 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon because of the time change,
Oh,
and then
wonderful.
I worked on my portfolio, and I took a class at Steve Gary's copywriting workshop. He was a Chiat copywriter who taught a class. And I still remember his ad. He had an ad in the back of Adweek, and it said, "If you can't write, call." And he put his phone number there. And I'm like, this guy's a genius.
There you go.
There you
So you
go.
call, so you called them up,
I called him up.
and so that was his own like his own little class that he
Is it
did maybe like once or
own
twice a
little
week.
class? Yeah, twice a week, 5 people in the class in his basement, and he basically taught you how to put a portfolio together,
Yep.
back a long time ago, like talking 90s now.
And people do this today. There's people. There are these more established schools like Miami or VCU Brand Center where you get your masters, but there are like smaller mentorship opportunities. People are willing to help out, run their own little classes too. I always recommend people look into those.
Yeah. And plus these days, there's like so many places to show your creativity,
Mhm.
there's Instagram, there's TikTok, you could have a podcast, you could just be the greatest wise ass on a subreddit,
Yeah,
there's,
yeah, a lot of platforms.
yeah,
Um, so you took this. What was his name?
Steve Gary.
Steve Gary. So you took his
So kid,
class,
yeah, put a
and then you got
portfolio
a
together.
decent portfolio. How many campaigns did you have?
It was not a decent portfolio, and I showed it around for like a year, and I was not getting any jobs, and they told me that I should just stay a stockbroker, and I was horrible. And I still have that portfolio, and it was horrible. It was full of puns, you
That's
know.
awesome.
Um, I think my favorite ad, the only one I liked, it was still kind of punny, was for Purina Fit and Trim dog food,
Okay,
like that dog food, and it said and it was a dog on his back, and it said if he gains too much weight, he won't be playing dead. That was my line.
that's
Um,
awesome.
and something happened to me when I was in LA, failing and failing and failing. First of all, I was very, very shy when I was a kid in like high school and college even. And I just I don't know, just a quiet kind of shy kid, but I wanted to get into advertising, really, really badly. So when people told me my portfolio sucked, and they did a lot, I would ask them to be more specific. I would pull out each ad and tell me this one right here. Why does this suck? Why is this
Yeah,
one a piece of shit? Just so I could learn. That's how I learned, Well, this one, and they people, some people you meet who I think they just exist in agencies just so they could just destroy people's dreams, They've never done anything creative in their life. They're in some kind of like creative HR job and they just shit on people left and right. So you'll meet people like that. Don't let
it
them
wa-
discourage
wasn't
you.
wasn't Jay Shy kind of like that? Didn't he like always push? He pushed people. He was known
He
for like
pushed
pushing create,
people. He
but it
pushed people.
might have crushed
I
some dreams along the way too himself. But he's a legend
Yeah,
for it.
everyone crushes dreams. I remember showing a spot I made for Goodby Silverstein, and Rich Silverstein looks at it. He goes, "Well, the script was funny,
Hey, you
you
got
know,
something. You got
thick
something.
skin, thick skin." So, anyways, I really wanted to be in advertising. I really wanted to be a copywriter. I didn't care how badly my ego was being destroyed, and that's how I learned. And I kept doing my portfolio. And I met this one guy at this agency called Lord Dentsu, and his name was Ken Fitzgerald. And this is early '90s, and he was nice enough to meet me. I showed him my portfolio. He showed me 2 ads that he liked. He's like, do more like this, and call me when you have like you think you have a portfolio like these 2 ads.
Okay.
Told me why I liked them. So I went back and I worked, and he goes, listen, I have a day job, So when you call me and I don't call you back or anything like that, don't be a little baby. Just keep calling me. And I'm telling you right now, at one point I'll get back to you,
Yeah.
So, so I did, and I had, I worked really hard for a month or 2, and I thought I had a great portfolio, and I called him like 8 times, and the 9th time he answered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's don't, screw your ego,
Yeah.
uh,
That's great.
and he liked what I had, and he showed his boss, and his boss liked what he had. He said, well, we're not hiring in LA, but I have a friend in New York's hiring. You should get your portfolio out there. I'll call her up for you. And it
Right.
was at Saatchi and Saatchi in like 92 or something like that. And just out of nowhere, like TWA Airlines, had like a $99 round trip LA to New York, kind of like fare saver thing. And I jumped on, and I got out there, and I got a job at Saatchi. That was my first job,
Incredible.
but that whole process from starting, like working on my portfolio to getting a job took a year and a half.
How do you
Yep.
expedite that? For people that are listening today, that might be in school or approaching graduation, and they're looking at themselves like they don't have a good portfolio? Like, how do you expedite the process today, knowing what you know now? What would you do today?
Today, well, first of all, you don't have to like ride around LA on your bicycle with a suitcase, with all your ads in there. You know what I mean?
That helps. That helps.
Yeah.
That saves some time.
Um, get well, first do what I did. Get if you're not getting anywhere, get your portfolio in front of anybody and get feedback. Well, not anybody. Don't get it in front of anybody. If you get your portfolio in front of a hack and they like it, that means they like hack work. If
Right.
they don't like it, well, they're hacks, So, do all your freaking research, which is easy to do today, and
There's
know
no website.
everybody
Yep.
and get your list of like people who have made stuff that you love and get about 15 of them and you might get 2 of them to call you back, you know?
But I mean, like, if I'm like, if I'm a student with my portfolio and I'm not gonna. Who should they reach out to? Like to you? You're pretty busy. Like I wouldn't have the gall. I wouldn't
Have the
dare.
gall.
Probably,
Have the gall. I get hit up on LinkedIn like all the time, And if I have the time or I'm in the mood, I'll click on your link and look at it. And if your first 2 ideas are killer, I'll keep looking. If not, then I'll close it down,
right.
you know,
But
you
for
know?
feedback, because that's a lot to ask for,
Yeah.
Jerry. Like if you're like, I got this portfolio, I
Well,
just kind of finished up portfolio school, or I just worked on it for 6 months. Can you give me as much feedback as you can? That's a larger ask. So how should they
right.
approach like the ask for
Well,
feedback?
don't just target people like me who are the big CCOs,
Right.
Meet the Ken Fitzgeralds who, create not even a group creative director, but a creative director,
Yeah.
people who have been doing it for a little bit, but have a little bit more time, you know, and
Look,
that's what happened to me. I showed it to a creative director. He showed it to the ECD. The ECD, called the CCO at Saatchi, and I got up that way, you
yeah,
know.
that's fair. That's a good strategy. Gotcha. So high level in your career, let's go. Just run me through like what were those big moments, big ads in your career that really made you shine, made you who you are today? Looking back, what comes to mind? Favorite pieces?
Maybe just do it in a linear kind of fashion.
Sure.
The first, the it took me about after I got my first job, it took me like 4 or 5 years to get good at it. I was horrible. I didn't start at a Wyden or a Chiat or places like that. At Saatchi, I was working on like pharmaceutical stuff. So my first big thing was about 5 years into advertising. I was at BBDO and I wrote a campaign for Snickers called "Not Going Anywhere" for a while. And the Kansas City Chiefs still run my chef's ad where the groundskeeper's painting the end zone and he forgets the I and he paints chefs.
That's
You
a good
know,
one. Yep.
so that got campaign of the year in '97.
It's still running?
Well, whenever the KC is in the Super Bowl, they always drag it out from like, it's still in like the wrong kind of like,
That's awesome.
aspect ratio and stuff like that. So that, I did that with my a partner, Dave Gray, who's the director now. Great guy. That got us to Goodby and I got to go to Goodby in San Francisco.
So does
Uh,
if you get a big piece like that, like recognition for it in the industry or it sells, it's effective, then you get calls. Is that how it works? You like another like a better agency will call you up and you go over there.
yeah, yeah. Or they call you back when you call. Your calling card is your work. And
Yeah.
not when you're a junior, but when you're in the industry, you've got to do something. There's other ways to get jobs, headhunters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always wanted people to call. So how do you get people to call? Well, try your best to do something that's, award winning, famous, shit like that. So it took 5 years, but I got one and I got to go to Goodby,
Why did it take 5 years? I mean, and I hear this a
'cause I was
lot.
horrible. I was horrible.
Okay. And
If
does
I,
it just take experience or do you have like what can you say like to expedite that process, like to get better? It's a large question, I know, but like what's something you can be like you would have told your junior self?
um, you just because you got a job doesn't mean you're good at this.
Right.
Yes, it was hard, almost impossible to even get into this industry, but now you're in it and you're at the bottom. And the only way you're going to get out of the bottom is, and you're a creative person, is to do amazing, amazing work. So you have to figure out two things. One, you have to figure out what amazing work is, because you still don't know what that is, you know? So that's what would always comb through the awards archive,
Yeah.
annual
Know the
stuff like
standard.
that, you
Know
know?
the best of the best out there.
Know what it is. And somebody once told me, like, when you're young, you don't have a style. So find somebody you love and copy them. That doesn't mean copy their ideas.
Right.
Copy their, do it like that,
Who is that
So
for you?
for me, it was a guy who used to work at Wieden and Kennedy and wrote a lot of the original Nike stuff, named Mark Fensky. And then it was another guy, Cliff Freeman, who was like the funniest guy in advertising. So those, two kind of, one's kind of cool and kind of edgy. The other one was just hysterical. So those are my two biggest
Inspirations.
influences. Yeah. And just, I was still working on my portfolio when I had my job at Saatchi, and then I went to Wells Rich Green. I don't know why they hired me like that, but I was always just trying to get better, trying to get better, trying to get better. The other thing you have to figure out how to do is how to sell your ideas, you know? The first thing you really have to learn and never stop learning it is, what is a great idea? Because what was a great idea 10 years ago is not a great idea now.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you always have to stay fresh and push. You'll get to a point where the award shows aren't even good enough, and you have to kind of keep an eye out, because some of the best stuff I've ever done never won one award, but you
Right.
have to be hungry, and you have to be searching and always going, I have to get better. I have to get better. I'm still like that 25 years later. Do you know what I mean? I have to get better. I have to figure out how to do this. So
Sounds
stay hungry
exhausting.
that way. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's worth it, because you make something and it's like, shit, fucking awesome.
And then it pays off. Yeah.
That was always the reward. You made it. You're like, oh my God,
And then you see it out in the world. Yeah.
you see it out in the world,
So
And,
find the inspiration, know what good work is.
Yeah.
Was there another thing that you said too?
You have to figure out how to sell your work.
How the heck do you do that?
I think for me, it was trial and error, first of all, it's like pitching your ideas to your bosses, right? And if they're not liking it, and you're loving it, figure it out, just staying on it, and trying to get it to them. And then, eventually a couple of years in, you'll start going to clients and stuff like that. And, figuring out the best way to, pitch your idea to a client. Don't come in like the crazy creative. Come in, having done all your research, knowing about their business as much as you can, and, I like when I first came in, I got hired at BBDO as my third job as a headline writer. I wasn't even a copywriter. I was a headline writer. It's the greatest job ever.
That sounds amazing.
I did 20 headlines a day, it's freaking great. Jerry, Hyatt hotels in Aruba. I'm like, all right,
Let's do this.
let's do this. They had a big golf course there. So 18 ways to leave your lover. There you go. 19 more and you can go home. All right.
They don't have that nowadays, I'm sure.
No, they don't.
That's a great role.
And TV, had no idea how to do TV. So I studied like Mark Fensky and Wieden and Nike and Cliff Freeman and Little Caesars and Wendy's and stuff like that. And I figured out how to write TV. And then I figured out how to present TV,
Right.
because I was like reading scripts, and then we cut to a medium close up of, and it's like, no. Present a script, present a video script like you're telling a story to your buddy,
Yeah.
and then we turn the corner and who's standing there? This guy, that's, I kind of learned.
And that kind of draws on the review, that skit writing back.
Writing
kinda,
script, tell it like a story,
Yeah. Comes full
So I
circle.
learned how to present after failing and stuff like that. And trust in your partner. You can never do it on your own, and get stuff made. And then, another thing I learned early on was, just again, back then making video, every great video I've ever done, the script was like, I was like halfway there, the production process, the work doesn't stop, you have to keep on crafting, the script. You have to, spend thousands of hours in casting, pick the right director, always pushing, figuring out a way to get stuff shot that the client didn't say they wanted shot, just always thinking, always thinking. I had great mentors who were directors, Brian Buckley and Frank Tadaro. They directed a lot of the early stuff I did. And when we set up a shot, we get the script and stuff, they would say, okay, what's next? What's next? What else can we get? So you have to figure out production, and you only have limited time, but you got the script, you're happy. Let's get 2 more things before we break down the lighting and go to the next thing, and that's one thing I teach, people who work for me. It's like, you're always creating and creating and creating and creating, and then you go into editing. So it's exhausting.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
It's worth it.
If it's good and it sells and you see it out in the world and people
If
like it and it's effective.
if you think it's great, and you could honestly say you've studied enough and you've done enough hard work that you can honestly recognize what a great idea is, and I think it's great, then that's good enough for me.
I like that. Well, you got some experience now, so
Yeah.
I'm sure, that holds true.
That took about 7 years for me to get there. I remember when I first got to Goodby Silverstein, I kept a journal, and I look back at that journal, and like the first page is, oh my God, I was in the same room with Rich Silverstein. It's what it says. I can show it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, that old fuck doesn't know what a good idea is.
Oh my goodness. I hope he listens. That's awesome. And I'm sure you told him.
I didn't tell him that. No.
No, that's awesome. Amazing. And I know we're running low on time, so I really appreciate your transparency, like even going over that timeline of like how long it took you to get this experience, so people know like it's not an overnight thing and it's constant. Like we've talked about, it's over and over nonstop working at your craft and knowing what a good idea is, getting inspiration everywhere. So I appreciate you illuminating that to our listeners.
Number one is getting to be able to recognize a great idea, really doing studying, it's almost like going to film school, studying what great is, right? And when you can get there and you're concepting with somebody, then when that kind of feeling in your stomach goes, and you want to run out and show somebody, that's a good idea. You know what I mean? Or when you're creative directing and somebody tells you like, you have to, it takes a lot of work and study to develop the instinct where you go like this. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. Gotcha. And usually there's a creative director or somebody, hopefully when you're just starting out, that can do that for you and teach you that and pass that down. Because
that's a whole nother podcast on being a creative director, not just going, that idea sucks. Tell me exactly why it sucks, and tell me exactly why you like it. You know what I mean?
The way somebody explained it to me, to give feedback, you should talk about like what's working and what's not working, rather than saying this is good or this is bad. Do you follow that philosophy?
Yeah, I always try to explain why I don't like something or why I'm jumping up and down wheezing.
Sure. Yeah. You gotta get it out and get pretty detailed. So
it makes your job easier, because then if they know, right, the next time they come back, then they go fix it, or they come up with another idea,
Gotcha.
And then, I didn't even go through then I went to Shide and we did Skittles and Starburst, and that was a blast.
How'd you get Skittles? Real quick, I know,
Yeah, your buddy wanted me to.
Yeah, shout out to Ken Bates over here in Chicago. He said,
strategy is your friend.
How'd you get Skittles so weird?
Strategy is your friend. No one's ever going to buy anything weird or different unless it's attached to strategy. Yep. So Skittles, we did a lot of research, and we found out that in the world of candy, they owned magic. Before I got there, they were doing unicorns and Merlin and Peter Pan kind of stuff, right? So I said, okay, I talked to my client. I said, so you're known for magic. Yeah, we're the magical brand. And I said, so what does magic mean to you? He's like, well, anything can happen. And I just remember thinking, you just told the wrong person anything can happen, So my stuff, I'd never presented it as weird or this is crazy. I presented it like it was kind of magical,
Yeah. Was this with Eric?
Eric came in after we had the campaign up and running, but he did some of the best ones. Yeah.
Okay. Because I've had him on, he talked about that. So you were before that, you might have initiated some of that that strategy work behind it.
Yeah, no, I from Goodby on, I always work really tightly with strategists, because I do like to push it. I like to push stuff to make people uncomfortable. But if they think I'm just fucking around, they're going to say no. but I can attach all
go
of my
back.
creative choices back to the brief and back to the strategy and back to research. Just like, it's not weird that there's a guy at a dairy farm with his shirt off and we're milking his tits,
Oh my gosh.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
That's not weird. We're in the Skittles world of magic.
That's pretty weird too, though. That's awesome that it worked and it sold.
Yeah.
That was a great one.
That was
Yeah.
like 17 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I can't forget that. Like it's running through my mind. That's a great one. What's that called? So people can Google it, YouTube it.
It's for sour Skittles. It's specifically for sour Skittles, and I think it's called Dairy Farm.
I love it.
Yeah, because he has the dairy farmer has a problem because his milk is sour because he's eating sour Skittles while they're milking him.
Right.
And you see what I did? I attached it to the product too.
There you go. That works.
That's another way to sell that kind of stuff. It's completely selling the product. The only thing is the creative part that you kind of have to sell.
Mm-hmm. And you learn how to sell it by attaching it back to the strategy, back to the product as well. So that helps too.
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. This has been great. And all your advice, your transparency, the timeline, and I know there's way more.
I think I ended it like 08. So next time we'll cover the next, 12, 14 years.
Okay. Absolutely. So maybe we'll do a part 2 another day. But I really do appreciate you coming on. Can people reach out to you if they have questions or want to find out more about your career or want to find out more about Slap? What's the best way to do that?
Probably hit me up on LinkedIn. Yeah.
We'll have them connect, put a little note in the connection, say it's from Breaking and Entering.
Yeah. Gino sent me.
So many people don't put notes when they connect. I'm like, it's a little thing. That's all you need to do.
The little thing.
A little bit of time, a little bit of custom, make it tailored to them. And then you'll increase your chances of getting connections.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Gerry. Well, I appreciate you coming on. People will reach out and we'll get this up soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. If you like what you heard, it would mean a lot to us and help us grow and get better guests and better break-ins if you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars and a small review if you have the time. Be sure to connect with our guests if you like what they said by going to our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. That's all one word, Breaking and Entering Pod on Instagram. We have links to their portfolios and their LinkedIn, and they want to connect, so do that. And thank yous. Thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio engineer, and Buchan Zhang, our creative director. Can't do it without you two, and a team from the University of Illinois. It's a student team from the agency called AdBuzz. They're a PR agency, and it's been a pleasure working with them. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week with another amazing guest.